I'm recording. Everybody here? Okay, I'm just gonna watch you all, your names. Okay, everyone hears me? Hello?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, we can hear you.
all right, let's get
Yes.
started. Oh my God, okay. All right, let's get started the best we can. Yeah, so as I was saying, your tests need to be in by November 2nd. Is that what we said on Monday by the group? Even if it's bad, I want it, okay? If it's really bad, I might give you a chance to redo it, but I want it. Waishi, you have a question, go ahead.
I don't know if you were able to become a commenter or not for my essay. I just wanted to know if you could like see it or
Oh,
if you're
okay,
if there's
let me
still
check.
any
I probably
difficulties.
haven't graded it. Okay, I'll go check today. Yeah, that's a good question. Yes, I'll go and look at it today.
Okay.
Good. Any other questions? So even if it's bad, guys, here are the names of the people who got to do this. So Coco, Coco, just hand in something, right? Even if it's bad, and then I'll work with you, right? But hand in something. Kang, I'm missing your second test. Or did you hand it in already, or what's up with that?
Sorry, I was sick for a week and I've just been behind on everything.
Okay, so you have until Monday, right? You have some time. King, same thing. King, your second test. What's happening? King?
Procrastinating.
Okay, you have a few more days. Osorio, 2 tests. Are you here today, Osorio? Yes, Osorio, what's going on? Can you do those 2 tests this weekend?
Yes, I can. This is my catch-up week, so I'm gonna hand it in all by Monday.
Great. Tak, your second test. Tak, are you here, Tak? I think I saw your test actually. I saw a test in
Yeah, I
the
just
thing.
submitted it like 2 hours, like an hour ago.
Okay, got it. Very good. And Waishi, your second test, did you put that in there too, Waishi?
That's the one that I was saying like I hope you could see it.
Okay, awesome. Yes, you're right. Okay, good. And Coco, how are we doing, Coco? Are you there, Coco?
Doing okay for the most part. I should be fine.
Are you going to be able to hand in something over the weekend to test?
No problem.
Yeah, okay,
No
great.
problem.
All right, good. All right, let's get started. Today's text is, I think it should have been easier to follow by now since you're more familiar with Levinas. This is really a text which has everything in it that he has ever written, right? It's a very rich text, which is why I wanted to have the time to really go through it, because everything from all of his works, it's like a nutshell, right, of all of his works. So it's a difficult text, not only in terms of the language, but in terms of the message. So I'm going to do my best to deliver you something intelligible in the 50 minutes we have left. Which is good. It's enough time, I think. So I can see you. So if you have a question, of course, you raise your virtual hand and I can probably see it. Good. All right. So here in this text, Levinas is going to respond. And sorry, I can't put anything in the chat this time, but can I? Maybe I shouldn't. Yeah, no. Let me not mess with my phone. So he's going to respond to 2 other worldviews. I'll just speak slower. Structuralism, right? Like structuralism, and Heidegger, right? These are again 2 movements that are contemporary to Levinas, to which he's responding to. And hold on, I'm just panicking that I'm not recording. Am I recording? Yes. Okay. Sorry. Okay, I'm back. Okay. Right. So these are again 2 movements that are going to talk again about the subject as passive. Remember last time we mentioned there was psychoanalysis, right? Which and the anti-humanist movements, which were saying that yes, this rational self doesn't exist. There are other forces that are at play. We are not in control of our actions. This is, of course, Freud, right? We're not in control of our actions. The unconscious is emerging through us, right? And so here we have again another similar philosophies emphasizing the passivity of the subject, the fact that the subject is the prey to other forces, that it's not in control. So in a nutshell, structuralism, right? This is the idea that we are nothing without our environment. Our environment conditions everything that we are. So there's not really any free will or free thought, right? Everything that you are right now, all the choices you make, all the ideas you have, all the beliefs you have, is a product of your environment, your education, the language you speak, the country you live in, right? This is structuralism, that we are just part of a structure. The structure is what makes us, or the system is what makes us, right? So it's a pretty convincing worldview, actually, right? Structuralism, that there is nothing left, right? When we piece ourself together, it's all it is what we heard from our parents, from our education, from the culture we live in. There is nothing left once you sift through all those things, right? So again, Levinas is going to go along and then part ways, right? Notice what unites structuralism with anti-humanism is always this idea that there is no subject, right? We are passive and therefore we don't exist. So Levinas agrees we're passive, but it's this passivity, the fact that we are connected to something bigger than ourselves, which is the other. This is actually making us a self, not dissolving the self. So let me emphasize this, right? That anti-humanism, psychoanalysis, structuralism, these are all movements that say the subject is not in control and therefore doesn't exist, right? And what Levinas says is, he says, yes, the subject is not in control and therefore it exists. Are you seeing the reversal? I can't see your faces. This is very frustrating, but can someone say yes?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Right. So you're seeing how Levinas is surfing the wave, right? But he's going in a completely different direction. He agrees that the subject is not in control, but this is precisely what makes us deeply human, is this ability to be open, permeable, susceptible, sensitive to the others around us, and to allow them to move through us, or their need to call us forth, right? So we're not in control. When we see someone in need, they are dictating in a way what we should do next. And it is precisely as we respond to this need that we become fully ourselves. So this is really, now you're seeing a little bit how Levinas is parting ways with his contemporaries. And then of course you have, you can look for the quote on, actually do the quotes a little later. So the second person Levinas is responding to in this text is Heidegger, right, whom you don't know. And it's my fault because I'm the one supposed to teach him here in this department. So Heidegger, if you're a little bit familiar, you can look him up, of course, but this is the notion that for Heidegger, we are truly ourselves when we connect to being with a capital B, right? So in other words, I think we mentioned this before, according to Heidegger, we are lost in the small beings of our lives. You know, the little problems, the little career, you know, the little needs, the little desires, and we are all over, you know, we are just looking after small beings, whether it's objects or people. And he says, ultimately, we have lost our deep connection to being with a capital B, right? And so for him, for Heidegger, our true destiny is to reconnect to our being. And again, Levinas is saying there is no self there either, right? The self is lost in being. The self is only there to reveal being. There is no true interiority. There's no true inner self. There's no true individuality. Again, you see the trend, right? The self is dissolved over and over again, whether it's psychoanalysis, structuralism, Heidegger, the self is dissolved because it is passive or out of control. And again, Levinas taking a stance and saying, yes, we are out of control, we are passive, but this is precisely what makes us deeply human, right? Okay, let's look quickly at the quotes, and then we'll look into how Levinas develops this idea. So for structuralism, you go to page 59. Really? Yeah. Okay, you see the second big paragraph? Yeah, and you count from the word materialism, you count 1 to the bottom of the second big paragraph. There is the word materialism. You count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It is no longer man. Who is there? Say yes.
Yes, we're there.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I'm reading, right? So this is, he's alluding, he doesn't use the word structuralism, but this is he's alluding to it. You can tell he's talking about it if you're familiar with the movement, right? It is no longer man with his own vocation who would seek or possess the truth, but it is the truth that arouses and holds man, right? In other words, it's not us who give meanings and who teach, it's actually the meanings who are moving through us, the meanings that pre-exist us in society, in religion, in culture. These meanings are molding us rather than we are the ones molding the meanings, right? So the world is molding us rather than we are the ones molding the world. That's structuralism, right? And then he continues, all that is human is outside, right? In other words, there is no human apart from the influences and the worldviews that build it up. There's nothing apart from that. No secret, no nothing, right? We are just the sum total of our influences. That's structuralism. Okay, then Heidegger, of course, you have here on page 61. Yeah. So count from the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6 for Heidegger. Who is there? You can say yes. 61, 6 from the top for Heidegger. Say yes if you're there.
Yes.
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 Okay. For Heidegger, the very process of being, the essence of being, is the emergence of a certain light, a certain peace. You don't need to understand this. Expresses nothing. There, here it is. That borrows nothing from the subject, right? We are only here to reveal being for Heidegger. There's nothing else, right? My phone's running out of battery. This is the worst day of my life. Okay, continuing. Where was I? Yes. Expresses nothing that is interior to a soul, right? There's no interiority. Continuing the process of being, blah, blah, blah. But then the manifestation needs man because, etc. Confident, but here it is. Confident, but also speaker, harbinger, messenger of being. And here is the line you underline: man does not express any deep interior. There's nothing else apart expressing being for Heidegger. So again, you see the trend, right? So Levinas is going to follow, again, surf the wave, but go in a different direction, because he's going to say the fact that we are passive or out of control actually is what makes us deeply human, right? And he says this, and again, it's the same idea we've been talking about, right? For him, it's the other that provokes the meaning of the self, not the structure, not the unconscious, right? It's the other human being which really awakens me and which really moves me to become who I truly am. Okay, let me say that again, because this is important, right? So for Levinas, it's not the unconscious that truly moves me, right, to act. It's not the structures that move me to act. It's the human other who really moves me to become my highest self, right? So all of these philosophies were moved by something, right? And here for Levinas, he says, ultimately, the true self is found in being moved by the other, right? So it's the other who really inaugurates my true self as I respond, of course, as I am receptive or sensitive to that other, right? And so, of course, unlike all the other theories, right, this response to the other, this being moved by the other, and Levinas uses the expression, this being inspired by the other is breathing through me, right, in a way. This is actually what makes me my highest self. Remember, we talked about ego versus self, right? This is what helps me elevate to the level of a self. And so here he goes a little deeper why that is the case, right? And he says, I become a self because precisely by responding to the other, I am interrupting what he calls in the text, throughout the text, my own perseverance in being, right? You can write this down. Remember, we mentioned that. The natural self, the ego, is only interested in persevering in being, survival. I just want to persevere in my own being. As soon as the other interrupts this, what happens? I rise above mere survival. In other words, I rise above the animal state of mere survival. I rise above nature and boom, I am now a human being. Same argument, by the way, Aristotle makes, but with different words. He says the human being is a rational animal. With reason, we rise above the animal world, we rise above nature. Here, Levinas is saying, no, what makes me rise above the animal and nature is my capacity to relate. So Levinas would counter Aristotle by saying, man is a relational animal. This is what makes us human. This is what allows us to emerge from the animal kingdom as a full-fledged human being, the ability to relate, the ability to interrupt my instinct of survival, which the whole animal kingdom is doing, right? But I am the only animal, right, who can be interrupted in my rush to survive by the other. And at that moment, boom, I'm rising above the animal kingdom. Am I clear so far? This is important. Who has a question? Who is not understanding what I'm saying? Raise your hand or speak up. Okay, if I'm clear, say yes.
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 Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is what Levinas calls otherwise than being. Let's read together on page 63. Okay. So on page 63, where is it? Here it is. Okay, so great. The second paragraph, from the bottom of the second paragraph, which you see the word vulnerability, you go up, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 from the bottom of the second paragraph, doesn't its being. Who is there? Say yes.
Yes.
Okay. So he says, doesn't its being consist in divesting itself of being, not to die? So this is right again, when, remember, right before he's talking about how we are in a way exposed to the other, open to the other. He talks about being open, sensitive to the other, suffering for the suffering of the other, right? Uncovered. And then he says this, doesn't its being consist in divesting itself of being, taking off the being, not to die, but to alter into otherwise than being, right? So this moment, the moment we interrupt our perseverance in being and our instinct of survival, the moment we interrupt with the way nature works, right? Boom, we are headed, we are looking at, we are walking in the direction of an otherwise than being, right? And at that moment, boom, we've become full-fledged human above the animal kingdom, right? So again, remember this is key. For Aristotle, we are above the animal kingdom because we are rational animals. For Levinas, we are above the animal kingdom because we are relational animals. Okay, good. Continuing. So Levinas continues now, and he's going to enter biblical thought, right? Which is saying something similar. He's going to quote the text from the Psalms where is mentioned how human beings are in perpetual exile, right? For Levinas, exile, and also for the Hebrew tradition, right? This is the highest form of humanity, right? This is the opposite of the Western mindset, right? The Western mindset is when I have a house, when I have property, then I'm my highest self, right? Levinas is like, no, you're your highest self when you're capable of separating yourself, dissociating yourself, distancing yourself with that property for the sake of the other. You are your highest self when you are in exile. Do you see how he's working against the whole Western mindset, right? Let me say it again, right? Western mindset, the ideal is being on a territory, having land, having a house, having property. When you have property, you've made it, right? You're the highest. Levinas is saying, no, the highest level of humanity is when I'm able to distance myself from my property enough to offer some of it, right? To share some of it with somebody in need, right? So exile is the highest form of humanity for Levinas, not property and so forth. Everybody follow me so far? Say yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Any questions?
Yes.
Okay. No questions so far. Okay, great. I'm looking through. I don't see any questions. All right, good. So here's the text that Levinas quotes from the Hebrew Bible. Again, right, he's not trying to prove to us anything by quoting that text. He's just saying, see, there is a connection between what I'm saying and what this text, this ancient text is saying, right? He's simply showing that he is in alignment, right? Somehow here, his philosophy is intersecting, right, with the biblical thought. He's not trying to give himself any authority, right, by quoting this text. He's just saying, oh, we just happen to think alike, right? So he says this. I'm on page 66, the second paragraph, the top. We read in Psalm 119. Say yes.
Yes.
You there? Okay.
Yes.
We read in Psalm 119, verse 19. I am a stranger on the earth. Do not hide your commandments from me. And he's going to comment on this, right? He's going to say, the fact that I'm a stranger on the earth is connected to my ability to keep the commandments. What are the commandments? They're always about limiting myself for the sake of the other, right? This is in a nutshell what the commandments are doing over and over again. They're constricting my powers so that the other person can live, survive, thrive in the same space as me. So he's saying, when I'm a stranger on the earth, this is because I am capable of limiting myself and offering part of my possessions to the other. This is making me rise above my possessions. At that moment, I am a stranger, right? It's so in other words, what makes me distinct from the world, what allows the distance between me and the world, and that is to say, my full-fledged humanity, are precisely these commandments which command me to limit myself for the sake of the other, right? So let me say that again, right? What makes me distinct from the world, exile, right? What gives me this separation from the world, which makes me fully human, right? Is precisely the commandments, that is to say, my ability to limit myself for the sake of the other. As I interrupt my survival for the other, I am rising above the natural world, right? I'm not obsessed anymore with my possessions and this is my property and get off my property and I'll shoot you if you stay on my property a minute longer, right? This is the attitude we have, right? Or, you know, this is my possessions. Why should I share with you what I have earned, right? We have this mindset, this very, rooted in the world mindset. We are so attached, right, to the fruit of our work and to our property. And what Levinas is saying, you're still in the animal kingdom when you act like that, right? You're still stuck in the animal world. The only way to rise above is share. Learn to share. No animal does that. Animals don't know how to share. Well, maybe someone will disagree, right? But in general, right, when you go to the jungle and you see the lions, they're not sharing, right? Everybody's taking. So that's the idea, right? He's saying the
pack
ability.
animals?
Sorry?
Pack animals, ants, a lot of insects.
Yeah, I
probably.
knew somebody would say that.
Sorry,
Thank you,
someone had to do
Thank
it.
you, Coco.
Someone had to do it.
I'm all on the side of the animals too, right? So, but the Western philosophers, they tend to really despise animals for some reason. This has to change. I agree with you. Anyways, where was I? Okay, great. So in general, right, prey animals, we'll say, such as lions and so forth, right? They are not capable of sharing. They are completely focused on their survival. And that's why they're prey animals. We can only rise above being that, right? By sharing, right? Okay. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah. All right. So now we know a few things, right? We know that the path to humanity is to separate from the world by generosity, right? By the ability to share that world. This is creating a space between me and the world. I'm not attached to it anymore. I'm capable of offering it to another. So we already know that full humanity comes, right, at that price. But then, and we would be fine with that. I think most of us would be cool with that, you know, to a certain degree. But then Levinas gets very dark, right? And he starts to bring in a whole semantic field or terminology coming out of the Old Testament, right? The Hebrew Bible, around the concept of expiation, substitution. So we have these very barbaric concepts, all of a sudden, barbaric because they come from another tradition, right, than the West. So we need to stop a little bit on this very odd terminology. Let me give you a glimpse of it on page 64, right? So we would be fine until that moment where he starts to veer off into the Hebrew Bible. Where are these? Where is this with? Here it is. Okay, page 64, second paragraph, right after the little footnote 7. Everybody there from the moment? Say yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. From the moment of sensibility, the subject is for the other. Okay, so far so good. But now here's where we start to get uncomfortable, right? Substitution, responsibility, expiation. And now we're in this kind of barbaric terminology of, which is actually found, if you read the Hebrew Bible, this is the text which talk about the sacrifices, the book of Leviticus. And he's bringing concepts from this old ancient book on sacrifice, right? And so it's, for the French audience, they hate these passages. In fact, very little has been written when it comes to Levinas on these passages, right? Because they are so archaic and barbaric and, Hebrew sounding. So I want to stop a little bit on this terminology and explain it briefly. If you understand what I'm about to say, you basically will understand Levinas's whole second book, Otherwise Than Being, which is full of those words, right? This is really the key. I'm going to give you the key here to understand these concepts. So to understand what he's talking about with the word substitution, expiation, we need to understand what sacrifice means in the Hebrew tradition. Right? If we can understand that, we will see what Levinas is saying, that we need to be capable of doing, right? So, trying to think. So Levinas is clearly talking about me sacrificing myself for the other, right? And this is where most people stop. They're like, oh, well, I don't mind sharing, but sacrifice, this is a whole different story, right? So we need to understand what he means by sacrifice, right? Sacrifice for Levinas has everything to do with forgiveness, right? This is the structure of forgiveness. So I think I'm going to talk more about forgiveness because this is really what Levinas means by sacrifice, right? And once we understand the concept of forgiveness, we will understand what Levinas is trying to say here, right? So I'm looking here at the text, which is alluding to forgiveness right here. Same place, go to you see the little 7 where we left off, you go up from the 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, to suffer by the other. Say yes if you're there.
Yes.
Okay, all right. To suffer by the other is to take care of him. So far, so good. I don't mind taking care of the other occasionally, right? But then he says this, bears him, be in his place, consume oneself by him, all love, etc., right? So bear him. This is the Hebrew technical word for forgiveness, literally means to carry or to bear, right? So when he's saying to bear him, he's actually saying, if you know the Hebrew, you can hear it. He's saying to forgive him, right? So we need to understand, what does Levinas or what does the Hebrew tradition mean by forgiveness, right? So let me explain briefly, and then we'll go back in the text and it will be all very clear. To forgive is simply to carry the evil that the other person does to me without throwing it back in their face. Let me say that again. This is the definition. To bear or to forgive simply means this. I carry what you give me. I carry the evil you did to me. And to carry simply means I take it without throwing it back in your face. I keep it, right? I don't reflect it back. So for example, you cheat on me. Well, I'm not going to cheat on you, right? I'm not going to reflect back what you did. Or you hit me, I'm not going to hit you. I'm going to bear, right? I'm going to carry it and not reflect it. This is in essence what it means to forgive. To forgive is really refusing to allow oneself to reflect the evil that has been done to us. This is as simple as that. Nothing grandiose, nothing complex, nothing complicated. To forgive is simply this. I refuse to allow myself to now reflect the evil that you have done to me. In other words, I refuse to allow the evil that you did to me to make me into an evil person, right? I'm not allowing this evil to move through me and back out of me. It ends with me, right? In a way, I am absorbing it, right? That's what it means to bear. So there are two things that emerge from that. But before I go into those two things, everybody clear, everybody on the same page with me? Do you see what I mean by to bear or to forgive? Say yes if you understand.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. No questions, right? Sad that I can't read your chats. I wish I could. Okay, so now two things emerge from that. Once you're capable of doing this, once you choose to do this, rather, right? Two things emerge. Number one, you yourself emerge from the evil that was done to you unscathed, untouched, undamaged. You're hurt, but you're not damaged. Let me explain, right? Whatever pain the other inflicts on us can never damage us. It can only hurt us. It's different. The damage always occurs in how I react to that pain, right? The other screams at me or hits me. It hurts, but I'm not yet damaged until I decide, oh yeah, you did this to me? Watch me, right? And now you are allowing the pain to become toxic and vengeful and resentful and violent. And now you are turning into that evil, right? So the first thing that forgiveness does is it protects you from becoming the evil that you have endured, right? You are hurt, yes, but you will heal from that. But you have not allowed the pain to turn into resentment, to turn into anger, to turn into closed-heartedness, to turn into vengeance, right? And at that moment, you have protected yourself. You are in a way emerging unscathed, right? You have not allowed the poison to enter you, right? The poison just comes in and out, right? In a sense. So that's the first thing, right? That happens when we choose to carry the other, right? Expiate for the other, substitute ourselves for the other. These are all the same words for carrying the evil that the other has inflicted, right? But there's a second thing that happens, this time for the other. And this is very profound. When you take the pain of the evil of the other, what you're also taking onto yourself is their pain. Because every evil that anyone does is always coming from their pain, right? Anybody who's evil, scratch a little and you will see the pain or the trauma that made them like that, right? So when you're carrying the evil or what the other is inflicting on you, you are also choosing to carry their pain. And as you're carrying their pain over and over again, you are in a way making light lighter, right? You are in a way releasing them from this pain and from this burden they were carrying. And you are in a way healing them by doing that, if you do it correctly, right? Are you seeing? This is a little harder. Are you seeing what I'm saying? That you are in a way contributing to a healing process because you're taking on not only their evil, but you're choosing to take on their pain over and over again. Slowly, they are slowly getting rid of all of that pain, right? Now, I can anticipate what some of you are thinking, so I'm going to go there quickly, right? But before I go there, everybody see what I'm saying when I say that you're also, it can also be a healing process for the other to forgive. Are you seeing what I'm saying here?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. So now let me quickly jump in and tell you what forgiveness is not, because I can already anticipate some of you your objections, right? Forgiveness is not about being a victim, right? It's not about enduring like a victim day after day the abuse of the other. No, right? Forgiveness is simply you choose not to let that make you toxic, but you still have the responsibility to take some measures to protect yourself, right? you have actually the responsibility to stand up for yourself, to disagree, to say, no, I'm not going to take this, to say, well, if this continues, this is what's going to happen, right? So this, to forgive doesn't mean that you stay in the position of the victim for the rest of your life, right? It simply means that whatever evil has been inflicted on you, you know how to process it, you know how to wash it away, you know how to what's the word, work through it, right? But you have a responsibility, obviously, right? Kant would agree, we've done Kant, right? To also protect yourself, allow yourself to be respected for the sake, by the way, Levinas would agree here, you don't do it for yourself, you do it for the other. For the sake of the relationship, I have a responsibility to protect myself and to be respected and to be treated with dignity, right? So Levinas would never say, yeah, you should protect yourself and now go back in your little, whatchamacallit, retreat into yourself, right? No, you protect yourself, but for Levinas, you're always looking at the other, right? You're always facing the other. So if you choose to protect yourself, it's always going to be for the sake of the other, for the sake of the relationship. So I just wanted to make clear, right? To forgive doesn't mean to sit there and like a victim endure day after day daily abuse, right? It means simply that you process, that you know how to process whatever evil has fallen upon you. And it also entails that you also know how to stand up for yourself, but not for you, for the other, for the sake of the relationship. Okay, now we can do some questions. I said it all. So just to summarize, right before the question. So this is really what Levinas means when he says to suffer by the other, right? The most profound way, right, to connect to another is to be able to bear him, right, to forgive. This is what will bring you closest to the other. This is really what will also help you rise to the highest level of your own humanity, the capacity not only to share your world with the other, but to carry the other without allowing them to destroy you, right? To carry them without allowing them to damage you. Okay, Osorio, go ahead.
So what you were talking about earlier, about forgiveness and how it has to be like for the other, not for yourself. I was just wondering how you would be able to differentiate that, like in terms of, would there be like a difference in action or emotion based on whether you're forgiving someone for yourself or for the sake of the relationship? Like, how do you differentiate those two?
They're simultaneous, right? You can choose to forgive for yourself. I'm not going to allow this person to, right, to contaminate me. I'm not going to retaliate. I'm going to bear, right? So even if you do it for yourself, it has repercussions on the other, right? And if you choose to do it for the other, it has repercussions on the self, right? So they're simultaneous. Whichever one you choose, the other one will happen. Does that make sense, Osorio?
Yes.
Okay, great. Other questions? There should be a lot of questions. This was a terribly difficult passage, and I felt I was talking by myself. So there should be a lot more questions to clarify some of the things I said.
If someone forgives and the person is continuing, if like they're not healing from the abuse that they give out. I remember you said in your past with Kant that you'd have to remove yourself from the relationship, but if they continue to be abusive and you continue taking the abuse, then shouldn't it like fall apart then?
So the relationship doesn't need to fall apart, even if you have taken some spatial distance, right? Even if you leave the person, the relationship doesn't need to fall apart inside of you. If you're always willing to continue the process of forgiveness within yourself, right? To forgive the memories you have of the evil, right? To kind of go through that process. You are in a way keeping yourself in a loving state towards the other. So the relationship is not broken within you, even though you have moved out, for example, or you've moved away, or you're separated, still the relationship remains connected through this process of forgiveness. Does that make sense, King?
Yeah, I'm understanding.
Okay, good. Allegre.
I'm just confused the entire thing. I'm just
Good.
there's too much information to
I
actually
know.
make a
I was
meaningful
like,
question.
it's terrible. There's so much. Okay, go ahead,
So,
Allegre. Let's try. We have 20 minutes. We have
all right,
time.
let me take a stab at this. Like we did say, like we have to rise above, like above, like I guess animal state, and because it's the path, to be like more human or just become more like human. But like we said, like animals do this to some extent. So does this can also apply to the animal, like my relationship to the animal or to like a dog, or it doesn't?
Of course, beyond Levinas would never talk about animals, but yes, you can have. I believe you can have this type of relationship with a dog who is wounded, and you're responsible for it, and the dog is elevating you to your true. Absolutely, right? Yes. So, but I'm just talking in the context of Western thought. For them, the highest humanity is above the natural realm of instinct of survival and prey attitude, right? Dogs are little humans, so it doesn't count.
So like
They're
like a
not
very,
animals.
I mean, technically they are, but like I was just thinking of like a very extreme example, like I guess a desert island, like when you're trapped like alone in the desert, you have to like for your survival, I guess, but with another human. There's gonna be some hard things because you can see the parallels from like his experiences in the camps, like they were starving, they were like being
Yeah.
executed, and you can see that
Yes.
how do you say, you can see them like the PO themselves being regressed back to animals. So like, a better question is, if we able to achieve like this I guess this state, is it possible to regress back into like like
All the time. Anytime you recoil on yourself and think only of your own survival, right? And try to ignore what's happening around you, you're back in the prey animal, I'll say, not just animal, but the prey animal kingdom, right? Yeah, all the time we're regressing back every minute.
that's true. So the ego doesn't really die, it just stays in the back of your mind
Yes,
essentially.
it's always there. It's like
Okay.
alcoholic, right? You're always an alcoholic. So you're always an ego, and you always have to make this effort, right? To stay open, permeable, sensitive, and so forth. Yeah, it's an effort. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Kim.
So I just have a question regarding, I guess, how this whole concept of forgiveness as it relates to punishment. Because, for example, like what you're saying about, let's say somebody hits me, I don't hit them back, or I don't take some kind of revenge or I don't return that evil to them. But as a society, if somebody commits some kind of like crime, we do punish them, right? So, I mean, how does forgiveness work into something, the concept of punishment?
Yeah, I can punish someone and still forgive them, right? The punishment is not coming from a place of toxicity. It's coming from a place of, for example, a child, right? They steal something from me. Okay, well, I'm going to forgive you. I'm not going to hate you now, right? I'm not going to have all this negativity towards you. I've cleared that up, right? But I still am going to punish you. Punishment is okay because it's not retaliation. Punishment is something you're doing for the other. It's not you reacting and throwing back on their face all of the negativity they threw on you, right? It's not coming from a place of resentment. It's coming from a place of love, should be, right? So it's different. Does that make sense, Kim?
I guess so. I think about like for example, you see these documentaries or whatever of people like family members that have lost their let's say their loved one to a murderer, and then they're sitting in a courtroom, and then they look at the murderer and they say, I forgive you. I don't want you to
that's
die.
fine. You
I
should
don't want
still.
yeah.
Well, dying is different, right? Dying is like it's the end for the murderer. But I think, I personally think Levinas would not believe in the death penalty because, like Kant, right, it's taking away human life. But punishment to help the person, understand what he did, absolutely. The death penalty doesn't help them understand what they did. They die. You
Yeah.
see what I mean? So yeah, the people in the courtroom can forgive, but of course the person still needs, for their own sake, to taste a little bit of what they did, to feel, the weight of what they did. They should be punished, yes, very harshly.
Yeah, I totally agree with that because I think you could still use force. Like for example, with just what the professor was saying, you can still use force on a child to tell them, hey, what you did was wrong, and to let them know that you shouldn't do it again, and to
Yeah,
learn
yeah,
from it.
yeah. Exactly. Kim, are you better?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, Kang.
I was gonna say just one thing. It's like rehabilitation in our justice system. It's bad.
Yes.
It's better than punishment and better than retribution punishment.
Yes.
Also, just I want
Yes.
to say that.
Good point, Allegre. Very good. Kang, speak to us.
So I had no idea what expiation meant. But when I Googled it, it said atonement.
Yeah.
So I understand this in terms of restitution and responsibility, but I don't understand the atonement. Like, what is there to atone for when someone else has done evil?
Atonement is simply another word for forgiveness. So that if someone has hurt you, yes, there is material to forgive for you, right? So all these words, expiation, substitution, atonement, these are all synonyms. I'm simplifying a bit, but these are all synonyms for the act of forgiveness, which is the act of bearing the other, which is the act of not allowing them to make you toxic. Does that make sense? So it's a different meaning than what we usually use it for, right?
Oh, okay. Doesn't atonement literally mean atonement for your own evils?
Atonement, first of all, the word atonement is simply is the same as expiate, which is really it's an act of sacrifice by which you cleanse the other person. This is literally what it is, right? It's an act of sacrifice by which you cleanse the evil of another person. The animal dies, right? The animal is sacrificed, and through their death, the other person lives. So likewise, says Levinas, when you forgive someone, when you have this small death, this sacrifice, this sacrificial carrying of the other, you are in a way releasing them. But I added, you're also releasing yourself. Does that make sense, Khan?
Yeah.
Is it like forgive and forget sort of thing?
Well, you don't forget. You shouldn't forget. Sometimes you have to keep the person accountable, and if they redo it, you have to remember. See, you did it again.
No. I don't mean in that sense. I don't mean in the sense that you forgive, because I mean, like, what I meant is, like, some people say, "Oh, I forgive you," but then they are resentful, even though.
That's not forgiveness. If your resentment
Exactly.
is still there, you didn't do
exactly.
it.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so
Exactly.
like, you learn forgive and forget, but like, yeah, you don't forget, because of course, if that person do something to you again, you're going to have to remember, okay, no, it can't be in this relationship, it's toxic.
Yes, exactly, right? So the forgiveness, if you still have resentment, you haven't done the work of forgiveness. Forgiveness is really cleansing yourself of the toxicity, the resentment that comes out of being hurt by someone, right? So that's so very good. Yes, Ram, I agree with you. Osorio?
Yes. So I don't know if you touched upon this before already. There was a portion of the class where I lost connection. But I am a little confused as to what his the distinction that he's trying to make between the self and the ego, and why it's important to abandon the ego.
Good question.
I understand that he was trying to, like, say that the ego is a failure to itself constantly because it can't, or I don't know, that whole part about where he was talking between the difference between the self and the ego. I'm just confused about what distinction he's going to make about that.
Oh, sorry, are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, yes, very good question. This is a great way to summarize everything. Very good. The ego is the part in us which is only interested in survival and my own happiness and my own comfort. That's the ego. It's what Kant calls instinct, right? Same thing. The self is what Kant calls reason, right? So Levinas, the self is that which is the part in us which is capable of rising above the instinct of survival and sharing, right? Or even sacrificing. These are the two actions that help us rise above the instinct of survival. I'm capable of sharing my bread with you. I'm not thinking of my survival anymore if I'm doing that. Or the ability to not just share my bread, give the whole bread, right? Forgiveness is part of that, right? So the ability to share and the ability to forgive both go against the very basic instinct of survival, right? Because survival doesn't want to forgive. Survival wants to protect yourself from this person. Survival wants to push that person away and kill them, right? So the ability to rise above that and forgive, or the ability to rise above the instinct of survival and share, this is what elevates us to the higher self, to our full-fledged humanity. Clearer, Osorio?
Yes, that's clearer. And then what was it that he was trying to say about identity? Because he was saying something about identity being tied in with the self and the ego, but at the same time, it's like it doesn't exist. Or I don't know if he was trying to say that, or just what is the relationship between that and
Yes,
identity and
the title.
subjectivity?
Yes, let's talk about the title of the very good question, Osorio. Identity is who I am, my identity. So in other words, it has to do with the ego identity. Identity is, let's see, what is mine? That's identity. My language, my values, my country, my my, that's identity, right? National identity, what belongs to us, right, as a country. So what Levinas is saying is that we have to be without identity. It's more human to have no identity, to have nothing that is yours, right? You're able to offer what is yours to others, and as such you rise above identity. There's a lot here that we can talk about with regards to immigration, which sadly I'll put it in the test. Osorio, are you a little clearer?
Yes. And then sorry, there's just other things that he was saying that I was just not really understanding. So he talks about subjectivity and vulnerability, and I couldn't tell if he was trying to advocate for um, um, leaning away from subjectivity, like things being about, you know, only ourselves and our understanding and interpretations of things. And what he was trying to say, like, you know, like I think he was trying to say something about, you know, it's necessary to be vulnerable so that we can give ourselves to the other.
Yeah.
But I don't, yeah, can you explain that a little clearer?
So vulnerability is, again, this openness, this sensitivity to the other. You're aware of their suffering. And this, for Levinas, is what makes us a self, or he uses also the word subject, right? To be a subject is positive in Levinas. It's the ability to, I'm going to do a pun, which he does, to be subjected, right? To be passive, to be receptive, to be open, right? So the subject is another word for the self in Levinas. Does that help, Osorio?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. It's hard, guys, right? It's a difficult text. By the way, it'll make you feel better. This is the hardest text we'll do this semester. It's going to get a little easier. Any other questions? Okay. So you know that I'm always interested in hearing your test questions, right? So if I'm going to be thinking over the weekend and I'll give them to you on Monday. But if anyone has an idea of how to connect Levinas to current events, right? Let me know, email me. That way maybe your test question ends up in the test. Good. So how are you guys feeling with Levinas? Let me get an idea. Maybe a few of you can speak up. We have a couple minutes. How do you feel, like on a scale from 1 to 10, and the level of comfort or appreciation or enjoyment? Let's say enjoyment. From 1 to 10.
I would say I didn't have enough time to read it because I felt like I need to read and reread the chapters.
Yes. So you need a
So-
little more time. Yes.
Yes, like maybe a 6.
Okay, very good. No, it's we're going so fast, right? And there is, yeah, we need a lot more time to assimilate Levinas. I agree.
Yeah,
Anybody
because
else?
like in the
So-
reading in the reading assignment, I'm like on chapter 1 and then didn't even realize that I have to read other chapters and give the reading assignment back.
yes. Yeah, you were in the process of discovery of what to do in the class all at the same time, right? So-
Yes.
Very good. Yes, that explains a lot. That makes sense.
Yeah.
King, what do you want to share?
I feel like I'm at a 2, where
Oh, a 2.
yeah, a lot of the ideas doesn't seem that new, so I'm kind of it just sounds like recycled stuff from the past readings that we read from different philosophers. Because I understand that there's like a linear progression where they build off of each other.
Yeah.
So I'm like it feels everything feels like it's like just past teachings, and it's hard to differentiate.
Yes, you're right. Absolutely, they're building on each other, and although each time they're going a little deeper, right? But in essence, they are all saying almost the same thing, right? Which is, I'm kind of doing this kind of brainwashing with you guys this semester, repeating over and over again the same concept with different words. So yes, you're absolutely right. There should be some resonance between the philosophers, although each one, right, brings a little more, obviously. Good, King, good observation. Allegre, you will conclude.
No, I just had questions like well, first things like you could connect I guess his thing to like literal like humane policies or how we should treat human as like as the other, easy enough, like the prison thing, rehabilitation versus punitive versus justice or retributive.
Oh, email me the question so I remember. I'm not gonna remember.
Sure. Oh, the other things like how much can we take from like I guess in this Freudian sense, because he talks a lot about the ego and that's definitely from Freud, but when you explore like a little more about like how Freudian looks at things, we have the ego, we have the id, and we have the super ego, and it is like our impulses, our desires, and the super ego is like our moral states. So is there a way you can apply you could integrate in this in some kind of capacity, I'm guessing, because to be generous is basically like your super ego trying to tell you this is what you should do, but it tells you to
Well,
be
no,
impulsive
right?
is to like
Not
take.
for Levinas. Be careful, because that's Kant, right? Your super ego telling you what to do. For Levinas, it's the other person telling you what to do.
Okay.
You become aware of what to do, not through your own conscience. It's the other person making you aware of what to do, right? So it's a little different. A little different.
I mean that's fair, but like the id is like the impulsive drive to like take things then, and you can still take that.
Yes. Yeah, you can do that. You can say that. Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah. Good. Okay, guys, I'm hoping I was able to record this. I don't know how to do this. I've never recorded on the phone, so I'm really hoping I don't lose this. But we'll see what happens. I'll try and post it as soon as possible. So send me questions, test questions if you want to, and I will see you guys on Monday for your discussion. And I'll try and send the questions before that. So I'm going to start the process of ending the meeting. Whoever wants to stay, you can stay, but I'm going to try and stop the recording. I don't know how. How do I do? Oh, here. I want to stop it. Stop recording. You will receive an email notification. Oh, okay. Hopefully, when the cloud recording is ready. Wonderful. Okay, you guys can go. Whoever wants to stay behind can stay behind. And pray for the recording. Why is it still recording? I don't get it. Oh, somebody help me. What's happening? Recording. Stop.